Hi, I'm the Octopus Lady, you're watching Alien Ocean, and let's talk about what I think is one of the most legitimately alien-looking animals I'm ever going to talk about on this channel. Let's talk about bigfin, or Magnapinna squid today, shall we? Yeah, baby, we're talking about these guys. I'm sure many of you have seen this video before, and I want to give a shout out to Dr. Mark Benfield from LSU. He was one of the researchers who helped get this footage, and who also sent me a bunch of videos and pictures of Magnapinna squid to use, which was very nice of him, so thank you, Dr. Benfield. But yeah, real analog horror kind of stuff, right? And I read somewhere that apparently this footage was recorded originally on VHS, which, if that's true, makes this like actual analog horror. And you know what? When I first saw this video all those years ago, I honestly thought it was fake. I thought someone was trying to pull a Loch Ness Monster or a Bigfoot by releasing this fabricated video and being like, look at this scary thing that lives in the ocean. And I was like, no, I'm not stupid. This isn't real. Nice try though. But then I think an entire year later, I actually found out it was real footage and it was a real animal. And if you haven't noticed already, this video is going to be shorter than usual because we just don't know a ton about Magnapinna squid, but I'm hoping to share information with you that no one has talked about before in other videos and articles about them. 1. Their taxonomy. Bigfin squid are in the order of Oegopsida, specifically in the family of Magnapinnidae. They're related to a bunch of other squids, which, like, duh, what else are they going to be related to? Including the family Architeuthidea, which contains the giant squid, and also Cranchidae, which contains, among other species, the colossal squid. 2. How long have they been on this planet? I don't know. Couldn't find any information on their fossil records or anything like that, but that shouldn't come as a shock to anyone. It's kind of a bummer though, because I don't really know where to put them on my little whatever the heck this is. I guess I'll just stick them in a corner with like a little label that we don't know how old they are, I guess. 3. Where do they live in the world? There hasn't been a ton of sightings of them, so we're not entirely sure what their habitat range is. We've found some in the Great Australian Bight? Oh, the Great Australian Bight. We found some in Hawaii, the Gulf of Mexico, some off the coast of Colombia, and Brazil, and ooh, the Philippines. We may have found some in the Indian Ocean, kinda near Madagascar, and also maybe a few by the Ivory Coast and Ghana, but researchers weren't super confident that these were Magnapinna squid. Also, I was reading in one paper that there is a high probability that scientists have seen them in a bunch of other places, but didn't realize they were bigfin squid, and so the footage got labeled something really vague like Cephalopod, squid. And let's not even get into the fact that there are probably a number of them preserved in jars somewhere with similarly vague labels. There's a hypothesis that says that bigfin squid are found all over the world, which, you know what? If that's not true, I'm declaring it to be true. I, the Octopus Lady, claim the entire ocean in the name of all bigfin squid everywhere. All of it. Go nuts, y'all. They are a deep-sea squid, so unfortunately odds of ever running into one while just out for a swim is basically non-existent. And yes, I say unfortunately because I would love to just run into one while going out for a swim. They seem to live at least 1,000 meters below, but the deepest ever recorded was at a little over 6,200 meters below. 4. What's up with their common name? Yeah, so calling them bigfin squid was something that bothered me for a really long time, because who looked at this thing and went like, you know what this animal should be named after? It's fins. And yes, they have very big fins. According to one paper I read, of the Magnapinna squid they surveyed, the ratio of their fin length to their dorsal mantle length is anywhere from 0.75 to almost 1. But still, for a long time, I was like, this is a terrible common name for them. But I found out that some of the first specimens that researchers collected of bigfin squid looked like this, which, okay, I get it. That makes sense why they named them after this part of their body and not this part of their body. Still think we should maybe entertain the idea of a name change, though. 5. Magnapinna squid age and size. A lot of pictures and videos we have of Magnapinna squid are mostly of them in their juvenile state, so not even full grown. But, according to NOAA, this footage right here is of an adult Magnapinna squid. They don't know what the size of this one was, but the largest bigfin squid recorded was 6.4 meters long, but only 0.3 of those meters was its body. The rest was its arms, tentacles, and their filaments. 6. Let's talk about their filaments. So there is a difference between arms and tentacles and cephalopods, but we don't actually have to go into any specific detail about the differences here, because from my understanding, it's very hard to tell the difference between arms and tentacles on Magnapinna squid. We know that this part is technically the arm or the tentacle or whatever, and all the rest, everything that's hanging down, that's what some researchers call filament. No other cephalopod has filaments like this besides the vampire squid, which I also want to make a video about someday, and we're not entirely sure what they're for. We do know that big fin squid can coil them up when they want to retract them into a spring shape, but besides that, they don't seem to have a lot of control over them. I read that an ROV ran into a Magnapinna squid once, and it got its filaments all tangled up on the ROV and couldn't seem to untangle itself. Poor thing, he probably had no idea what was going on. We have some guesses as to the function of their filaments, but let's talk about 7. Why do they hang out in the water like that? That's creepy, man. You're being creepy. You're being a creep. This is what I've seen some scientists call the elbow pose, and Magnapinna squid don't always position themselves in this vertical formation. They've also been found in horizontal formations as well, but that seems much more rare. There was one old paper I read that said that maybe the reason they situate themselves like this was so they can use their filaments to monitor for external stimuli. Since they basically live in perpetual darkness, casting these long lines out from their body can be their way of figuring out what might be near them. But when ROVs have bumped into the filaments of Magnapinna squid, much more intentionally and much more carefully, the squids very rarely reacted in any way. Seems like the leading hypothesis today for this position and for the filaments is for feeding purposes. They hang their long filaments in the water, which are covered in tiny microscopic suckers, and catch any zooplankton that might swim by. They've also been seen with their filaments touching or dragging along the bottom of the ocean floor, also potentially as a way to catch any prey that's crawling along. But again, these are just hypotheses, we don't entirely know for sure. 8. That was everything I could find about big fin squid. Yeah, there just isn't a lot of research done about them, which makes sense. Specimens that have been brought up to the surface often end up quite damaged, so it's not like you can just catch a Magnapinna squid and stick it in a tank, and the only way we can see them in their natural habitat is with an ROV. And honestly, I know people find them very scary, which is understandable, but from everything I've read about them, they're kinda not. They can't even control what makes up the majority of their body length, and it seems like the second a Magnapinna squid gets out of alignment, everything goes off the rails for them. I feel like everyone thinks that they're made up of the most unfathomable horrors of the deep, but in reality, they're just kind of made up of plain spaghetti. Really quick side note, I've seen a lot of people use this picture in their videos and posts about Magnapinna squid, but I very rarely see the artist get credited. So, this was done by the artist Kobadit. Here are her socials. I've also linked to them in the description, so go follow her. She's a very talented artist, and she was really nice when I asked her permission to use her art in my video, so don't steal art, y'all. And if you do, credit the artist, okay? Okay, just wanted to get up on my soapfish box about that for a second. Let's finish up the video. But, like I said, we still have a lot to learn about these very strange looking creatures, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what else we discover about them. Thanks for watching another episode of Alien Ocean, and extra special thanks to Dr. Mark Benfield and Kobadit for letting me use their stuff. Now for my hopefully interesting question of the day, if you could rename the big fin squid, what would you call it? I found out just recently that some people call them long-armed squids, which is better, but if I could choose a name for them, I would go with spaghetti squid, because that feels much more accurate to what they are, don't you think? Plus, it would be hilarious for something as scary as this to have a name like spaghetti squid. So leave your answer down in the comments if you think you have a better name for these guys. Check out my Patreon where you can get early access to videos or your name in the beautiful credits. Also hit that subscribe button and that like button and etc, etc. And until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood octopus lady reminding you that you don't need to go into space to find aliens.